Welcome to this edition of Under the Radar for Saturday, August 12th. And this week, social engineering reaches potentially lethal levels of stupidity. First off, in a bid to double the number of women in the Australian Defence Forces, it appears that the ADF recruiters have been instructed to hire only women for certain roles. The Australian Defence Force was today accused of putting up a smokescreen to hide its politically correct policy of only hiring women for roles, including those on the front line. The Daily Telegraph revealed the weekly targets sent out to ADF recruiters showed no targets for men in 35 of 50 Army positions, but the instruction to recruit immediately if a woman came forward for combat roles such as armoured cavalry. In response, the ADF put out a statement saying all roles in the Australian Defence Force are open for men and women to apply. But an ADF recruiter told the Telegraph, yes, they can apply, but only women will get the job. Surely that must breach some kind of employment law, or at the very least, false advertising. The instructions to ADF recruiters are clear, with roles for men marked in red, clearly showing there are no vacancies for the next 12 months, but the ones for women are marked in green, showing targets for hiring in the next 6 months. Frontline roles, including riflemen and artillerymen, are also highlighted with a yellow star, which means recruit immediately. A yellow star used to mean something different, didn't it? The internal ADF document obtained by the Telegraph also shows similar quotas for the Navy and Air Force. Of 18 jobs open for the Navy in the next 6 months, just one is open to male recruits. None of the 7 targeted Air Force roles is open to men. The recruiter said that he'd also been ordered to tell any male already recruited for a combat role but not yet in training to change their choice of job to make way for women recruits. I've not done that, he said. I want the best person for the job, irrespective of their gender. And so clearly there are some who aren't happy about these policies. In a speech to Army recruiters last year, Lieutenant General Campbell admitted his policies had met with dissension in the ranks. He said a recruiting officer had told the Chief of the Defence Force's gender advisor. Why does the Defence Force need a gender advisor? He needed to protect the Army from Canberra. Another recruiter told his team to ignore the directions to recruit women. I subsequently invited him to review his posting options, he said, and he warned recruiters, I will have no humour if my directions are ignored a third time. So either get on board with our social engineering program or get another job. A Defence spokesman said, while Defence maintains targets to encourage greater participation of women, every candidate must meet the required standards. Successful candidates are selected based on merit and their capacity to do the work, not on their gender. But that's obviously complete bullshit, because if that were the case, there wouldn't be any special quotas for women. How can you say you got there on merit if you exclude half the possible candidates? Or given that men apply for the armed forces at higher rates, you're probably excluding closer to 3/4 of potential candidates for some of the positions. And yes, everyone has to meet the required standards, but the required standards for the Army are already lowered for women in comparison to men. Here's the pre-enlistment fitness assessment, the only difference being that men must be able to do more push-ups. Then there's the basic fitness assessment conducted on a 6-monthly basis to ensure you maintain an adequate level of fitness. Men must be able to complete roughly double the number of push-ups and be more than 2 minutes faster on the 2,400 metre run. So potentially you have a man that is both stronger and faster than a woman, but the woman will be accepted while the man won't be. Then there's the Physical Employment Standards Assessment, which is gender neutral. So the implications of this policy seem to be that there's no advantage to being significantly better than the minimum standard. You won't be any more of an effective soldier than someone who can just meet the minimum. But then why do special forces, which are the best of the best, have higher standards? A Marine Corps study in 2015 found that all male units were faster, more lethal, and able to evacuate casualties in less time. Overall, all male squads performed better than mixed groups on 69% of the tasks evaluated. Now, I don't think anybody objects to having women in the armed forces. The objection is to recruiting people based on gender rather than merit, and then pretending that that's not what you're doing. So the ADF's goal is to raise the percentage of women in the ADF to 25% by 2025. Well, not to be outdone, the New South Wales Fire and Rescue Service now have a 50-50 gender quota for the recruitment of firefighters. Mark Latham wrote an article in The Telegraph that asserts to ensure more women are hired that standards have been lowered to accommodate them. So, for example, the Fire and Rescue Health and Safety Agency wants new recruits to be able to drag a collapsed firefighter to safety on their own. Yet to accommodate female applicants, the physical aptitude test has been reduced from a 90-kilogram dummy drag over 20 metres to the relatively easy task of carrying a 30-kilogram weight for 10 metres. Official safety standards require the use of fire rescue ladders, which are 10.5 metres long, 49 kilos and awkward to manoeuvre, requiring a high degree of upper body strength. Yet the ladder test has been watered down, with one participant describing it as a hopeless joke that even weak people can pass. In a further concession to female applicants, the separate test component for mechanical reasoning has been removed, as has the shuttle run assessment. The gender warriors making these changes are trying to overcome the way in which past tests have exposed big differences in male and female performance. In the first round of the 2013 work safety test, for instance, 47 women scored below 50%, but not a single man. As a senior Fire and Rescue New South Wales officer told me, the tests have been changed so women are far less likely to fail. It's been rigged for the sake of politics. Now, Fire Rescue New South Wales have put a different spin on it. They claim the physical aptitude test has been changed to better simulate the kinds of conditions firefighters have to face. And to do this, they conducted a 3-year study in collaboration with the University of Wollongong to come up with a set of 7 simulated tasks. For example, here's an explanation as to why the beep test or the shuttle run was done away with.
When you did the beep test, your heart rate goes very gradually up, but actually on the fireground your heart rate goes up very quickly, and then it can come down a bit, and then it goes up a bit, and it goes down a bit, and that simulates, the test that we just did definitely simulates that a lot better.
Now that sounds fair enough, but what about the rest of it? Here's the testimony of some experienced firefighters on the usefulness of the new test.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult, so it's probably a fair assessment of what's required on the job.
It was pretty intense. Definitely replicated real life operations better than that test I did when I got in.
Intensity did range a bit, but it was good simulation of that first 20 minutes or so at a job.
No running, but a lot of strenuous stuff on your legs and a lot of strength stuff there.
Oh, you're doing simulated hose drags, dummy drags, hazmat simulated conditions, carrying drums.
It's definitely more relevant to being a firefighter in terms of what happens to your heart rate.
The heart rate definitely got up for sure, yeah, it's great.
It's such better to do something that was specific to our job, and what we did today was very, very much like that.
Like the shears, that was hard. The dragging the hose, that's what you do. Carrying drums, that's what you do.
They were a lot more specific to our job every day. They were really task orientated and stuff that you meet in a day-to-day basis in the fire brigade or at a fire station.
No, it's very, very demanding, and yeah, it's like our job.
After just completing the PAT, I feel that operational commanders can feel very confident in knowing that recruits coming out of college will be fit enough and strong enough to perform any task on the incident ground. It was very good.
Well, all that sounds pretty positive, but I wonder how much selection bias went into those interviews. Did they actually interview anybody who thought at least some of the tests weren't adequate? Obviously, the senior officer in this article has a few objections. I noticed no one mentioned the simulated ladder raise. So if you're employed as a firefighter in Australia, particularly New South Wales, please get in contact with me through the comments or the messaging service here on YouTube and let me know of your experiences. I don't think anyone would object to coming up with tests that more accurately simulate the real-life experiences of the job, but how do you justify the dragging of a 30-kilo weight in place of a 90-kilo dummy? I mean, it's great if you're rescuing a kid under the age of 8, but what if you have to deal with an adult, especially an overweight adult? And does this look like an adequate simulation of picking up a 49-kilo 10-metre ladder? Removing the test for mechanical reasoning is also a little suspect, as it's been a well-established finding that males perform better on those types of tasks. When announcing the new recruitment system to coincide with International Women's Day in March last year, then Commissioner Greg Mullen said, "The overwhelmingly large number of male applicants and the staged processes we employed had the unintended consequence of disadvantaging female applicants." Now that's an interesting way of phrasing it. Here's a question for you. Did it unfairly disadvantage weak men? How about paraplegics? For a job of this kind, that's actually the point, isn't it? You want to rule out those that are physically incapable. But Mullins continues, changes will be made to address this imbalance. In an amazing piece of Orwellian doublespeak, he claimed that merit selection will determine the best candidates for the job, regardless of gender, but we will deliver equity in the number of male and female firefighters. How can the selection process be merit-based if gender-based outcomes have been predetermined? The exact same point I made about the ADF. These idiots are tying themselves in knots to justify their social engineering programs. Mullins retired last year, but he was very clear about what you should do if you have a dissenting opinion.
I am particularly concerned about suggestions that we are dropping standards and employing women incapable of being firefighters. If you simply don't like working with a more diverse group, then you need to start looking for a new job.
Notice he doesn't address the issue of lowering standards. His answer is just to say, because diversity. Now, this has been implemented in New South Wales, but it has so far been resisted in Victoria by, guess who? Women who actually qualified to be firefighters under the old regime and are concerned about how women will be viewed under the lowered standards.
I'm a fifth generation firefighter with Melbourne. I have been in the organisation for 12 years and I've grown up around it with my father being in the job. And I believe that it's not out of reach for women.
Yet, despite this, Rachel was actually against gender quotas similar to that of New South Wales being introduced in her home state of Victoria. She and her fellow female union members protested the move and were part of a legal bid to stop it.
By creating a quota for female applicants, you are casting a shadow of doubt over any of these females that join in the future. The changes to the recruitment process only serve to drive a wedge between women and men in the fire service.
It really, upset a lot of us, and we were hoping for some positive change. It made me feel that, I guess, nervous for the future girls of our organisation. Because if we've all got in on our own merit, they're going to say, you're one of the... Did you get in on the one that, was a bit easier, or did you get in with all the guys? And I think that if you're in a male-dominated job, there is some barriers that we're already trying to change and to create equality already. This is something else we don't need on top of that. I was only 19 years old and my dad was encouraging me to apply. I think there was over 5,000 applicants for 30 positions. So it was a proud moment not only for my family but for me to show that I could be, not just a fireman anymore, but I was, good enough to be a firefighter. We were all on an equal playing field. We were all there for the same reason and we were the best of the best. I don't think that dropping the standards or having the order of merit changed to allow more women to get in, I don't think that's the way to go about it. We need to change it from grassroots, from primary school and high school, and try to educate kids that this is a great career.
I wonder how long they can hold out before they're overwhelmed by the gender ideologues. And speaking of gender ideologues, it appears the shitstorm ignited by Google's decision to fire James Damore is hotting up with planned marches on Google offices in 5 US cities set for August 19th. Those cities include Mountain View, California, of course, Washington, D.C., New York, Boston and Austin, Texas. So as a good capitalist, I thought I would jump on the bandwagon and offer a couple of t-shirts just for such an occasion. And if you use this offer code, you can get 15% off until August 13th. Nothing like finishing a video with a good shill. So as I said, if you're a firefighter, particularly in New South Wales, or a member of the ADF for that matter, let me know your thoughts on gender quotas in the comments below. I'll see you next time.